Okay, so I think we're going to get started. I have a presentation which I'm going to just share with you all. Bear with me a few seconds. And then we've also got Steve Whitley on the call. So Steve, do you want to say hello to everyone just briefly? And then I'm going to deliver the presentation and I'll pass over to you in a minute.
Hi, everybody. I'm also full of cold, but I've got no choice but to talk. So sorry, I apologize in advance.
Okay, so let's set this slide up. Right. Can everybody see the slides? Okay, good. Right, I know we've got people still filtering in, but I'm going to get started. And Julius, if you could kindly let people in, that'd be much appreciated. So welcome everyone to the launch Q&A of the International Partner Program, which launched very recently. A really exciting program that we're very keen to tell you all about. As you all know, this has launched 2 weeks ago, and we've already had our initial batch of people that have joined as international partners and also as international partner program suppliers. Just so that you're all aware, this is being recorded and we will publicize this for people so that they can access this if they weren't able to attend this session. If you don't want your face to be visible at all, just turn your camera off. It's no problem. It will be published. So any questions that you ask, they will be available so that other people can listen to those answers as well. As I've mentioned, Steve Whitley is very kindly agreed to join the call. Steve, amongst other people, I know Munir is here as well. There's a couple of people that we know and work with who've got a lot of experience in international trade. I'm sure some of them will be very happy to offer their expertise and questions. If you want to work more closely with them in future, you're obviously very welcome to, but it's completely separate. Though they have got a lot of expertise between them, far more than me. And if you have got questions about things, how to do business internationally, very likely they'll know the answer and have done something very similar in the past between them. So we're going to get cracking. So the way we're going to do is we're going to first of all explain a little bit about what the International Partner Program is. So the International Partner Program is our solution for supporting corporate and individual members to do more business internationally on a cost-effective basis. So it includes a few main components. First of all, we've got international partners. They might be members. In one case, we've got one of our first international partners is a member. Some of them may not be members. And if they're not going to be suppliers, they don't have to be a member. So if they only want to buy or resell your services, then they don't have to pay anything to join. But obviously, they're going to be your customers. So you're quite keen to work with them. They could be schools groups. One potential international partner we're talking to at the minute is a school group, and there will be others we'll be approaching soon. They could be commercial entities. They could be universities. They could be a wide range of organizations that want to be international partners. They want to access UK and good quality reputable tutors and tuition companies and the services you can offer. The International Partner Program suppliers must be members. Okay, and then they register and they pay a fee to be a supplier, to use all of the template legal documentation and to be introduced to international partners. And as a non-profit professional body, the fee just goes towards managing the program so that we can make sure that we can keep the costs of the program separate from the general cost of membership, and we can track that the program is sustainable and will provide that benefit for those members on its own account. The cost is very low. It's £400 for a corporate per year or £100 for an individual per year, but we'll come on to that and more about what's included a little bit later. The international partners, if they wish, they can be a member and a supplier at the same time. So they can also sell back to you if they've got services which you want to buy. So the contracts that we have, the template contracts we have, are flexible and allow the sales and resale to happen in both directions if that's what both parties agree to. But obviously, what parties agree to is completely up to you, between you and international partners, or between international partners and suppliers. What we include within that program is the introductions and the template legal documentation alongside a TTA framework. In the worst case scenario where someone's gone completely rogue, we can remove them entirely from the program and safeguard other people from having to meet the same kind of fate that whatever issue arose in the first place. And it means that there is then, if someone is removed from the program, all of the other international partner program suppliers will be notified, so that if you have been working with them, you can choose whether you will, well, your template agreement will automatically end when their memorandum of understanding is terminated. If you wanted to choose to work with them on a separate basis going forward, that's up to you totally, but you wouldn't be able to use the same contract because it would require them to have an active MOU. And if we were to remove them, we would only remove them for a particularly good reason. We would give you enough of an information about why that was, so that you could take your own decision on that. But the whole point is that we want to make it safer, easier, and more cost-effective for TTA members to do business overseas. We recognize that unlike some companies that export, often the services and the prices that TTA members are going to offer, they're not worth tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of pounds in the first instance. And so obviously it might not make enormous amounts of sense for some tutors and tuition companies to invest very high initial amounts of capital into setting up international operations, because that's going to take too long to pay back and it's too uncertain. So we want to make it easier and facilitate that process for you as members. So why have we done this? I will share these slides with you, but here's a bit of an overview. So we launched an international growth and development survey, and we encouraged everyone to fill it in autumn 2025, regardless of whether you had any interest in working internationally or not, regardless of whether you're based internationally or based in the UK. Doesn't matter. The outcome of this, 93.7% of our members want to export from the UK if they're based in the UK. Okay, for people that were based overseas that responded, 100% of them exported from wherever they were based. 85.7% of people wanted there to be more international members, or at least for us to continue recruiting international members on the same basis. 77.5% of people agreed that TTA should provide international growth and development support, and the number of people that disagreed was just 1.4%. And 57.7% of people agreed that TTA should collaborate with partners to promote TTA and TTA members specifically in markets of interest on a paid basis. So we've got a pretty compelling mandate from that survey in terms of what we're offering here. And I think what we're doing is demonstrating how we always try to be extremely responsive to members and to match as closely as possible as what is realistic to offer that is in member interests and that members have wanted. You guys run your own businesses. You are the people that know your business is best. Our job as TTA is to look out for your interests and to see what it is that you want collectively, and to see how we can leverage any economies of scale to make sure that that can work on a realistic and sustainable basis. Most of the feedback we have was about things being relatively low cost and being able to be done remotely. And also we've had inquiries about legal documentation. People saying, well, can TTA provide me with legal documentation? In the past, the answer has always been a very clear no. I'm afraid we don't have that. And we send you off to go and talk to a lawyer, and the lawyer says, yep, of course I can do that. Pay me 10 grand and it's no problem. And obviously that's a bit of an issue for a lot of our members. So there's a couple of other things that we've got in the background here. We've looked at this in some detail. So we monitor market conditions in general. I know when we discussed recently, we made a reference to the word saturation. That kicked off quite a few people getting very animated on LinkedIn, going, oh, it's not saturated. That's not what we mean. We're not saying that the tuition market is saturated. You guys are all up a creek without a paddle. But what we want to be aware of is what market conditions are like, what market opportunities are there. And the sector, like any sector, there are lots of different segments. Many tutors won't see any drop in demand at all. Many people will be doing very well. Some people will be seeing it a bit more competitive, and some people are having challenges. Our job is to look out for the sector as a whole. We're not there to try and say, oh, you're all doomed because there's not going to be enough people in the UK that want tuition. That's not about what we're saying. It's very much about saying, look, if there is a factor that's going to suppress demand in some segments, how can we alleviate that? How can we support members to look at other possible ways in which they use their own skills and expertise, or their networks, or their tutors, to be able to grow their own businesses, even if that requires some slight change in how they operate or in how they pivot to working with different clients. And one way in which we can do that is the International Partner Program. It's not the only way, it's not the only thing we do, but it's one. And so we want to make sure that we can support those members who do have the aspiration to work internationally. And as I showed you just a moment ago, that's quite a significant proportion of our membership. And presumably all of the people that are on this call, I suppose I'm probably preaching to the converted, because you've already joined an IPP webinar. You presume you want to know about it already. And then here are some of the factors that affect supply and demand within the UK domestic market. Obviously, we've got no national tutoring program anymore. Schools and local authorities don't have very significant pots of cash and budgets to be able to spend on the good quality services that you can offer. There are pressures in the economy and drop in disposable income more broadly, and there is a phenomenon of high net worth individuals who obviously couldn't afford, or most able to afford, tuition. There's a net emigration of those kinds of people to other markets. And then we've also got a lot of teachers leaving the profession, many of which naturally fit into the tuition sector. And we've got graduates who want to use their subject knowledge and their recent experience in education who may not be employed or underemployed, and looking for opportunities, and sometimes they choose tuition. Now, we want to make sure that they're supported where they could do so safely to be able to do that effectively. But if they are coming into the market, there are obviously to some segments of the tuition sector which are going to face pressure. And so how does the IPP work? So I'm going to go slowly on this one to make it really clear how it operates. Number one, we go out to international partners or prospective international partners, and we give them the opportunity to access our membership. We've got lots and lots of very good tutors and tuition companies offering everything across the price and quality spectrum, from extremely bespoke, high cost, high value tuition, often residential tutors or things like that, down to lots of people offering different services, whether it's for entrance exams for schools, university support, whether it's IGCSE or GCSE, whether it's A-level, whether it's primary level, whether it's centres or online, all the way down to people that are offering really low price, but with not necessarily with basic skills, tutors with basic skills. So there are some perfectly valid members who operate using relatively inexperienced tutors who are effectively providing academic support for students that have not got exceptionally high levels of need, but they do need that support. So there is a place for them within the education system, within the tuition sector, and there's a full range of that provision available in the UK. Now, the UK has got a very good reputation for education around the world. I'm sure Steve might be able to echo that in a moment, as will people like Munir, who've got a lot of experience in the education sector. A lot of countries around the world, believe it or not, look to the UK as having a gold standard education system. They think that the UK's got a really good setup, and that they trust UK qualifications, UK education providers, and they've got a lot of interest in that. And so with the international partners that come on board, they sign a memorandum of understanding with TTA, which is legally binding and effectively sets out the rules of the program. They have to act in good faith, respect IP, respect confidential information, all these kinds of things which are fairly standard, but which are covered in this memorandum of understanding before they get through the gate, as it were. And they also agree that they will only be using TTA's template commercial agreements with the members that we introduce them to. And those template commercial agreements have been drafted by TTA to be balanced and fair, so that their legitimate rights to protect their income and their commission from introducing you to other clients are protected, but also your interests as members are protected at the same time. Then we have the members, which is, I presume, most, if not all of you. So the members can subscribe to this. There is that additional fee, and that additional fee goes towards the activities that we then undertake to produce and maintain the legal documentation and update it, to recruit and manage the international partners, and to manage the whole program. Okay, we've tried to keep that as low as possible. I challenge anybody to go and find a comprehensive commercial agreement they can buy for £400 or less. Good luck. But we've tried to make sure that's really affordable, and that you should, if you put any level of effort into this, you should be able to very rapidly earn back that modest investment by working with any number of the international partners that we've recruited. We've got 3 as of right now. We've got about 6 or 7 that have got memorandums that will be coming on board shortly, and about 25, 30 that we expect to come on board in the near future. And then lastly, we've got facilitation support. So what we do is we'll introduce you to international partners, and it's AI generated the nice pretty pictures because my graphic design skills are terrible, but it spelled supply wrong. But never mind about that. We will introduce you in the first instance, we will introduce you by email. In the second instance, like when we get probably 3 or 4 months down the line, we will transition away from email introductions as standard towards more of providing a simplified directory of members and a simplified directory of international partners. And you will be able to see international partners and what they're looking for, and you'll be able to contact them directly yourself. So do not expect that in the future we will be always emailing you introductions. This is only going to be done in the first couple of months. I'm going to say that again so it's really, really clear. We will only be introducing international partners and members in the first few months. Those emails will start going out on Monday. But then after that, we will provide the information for international partners and for member suppliers, and we will not routinely provide email introductions other than where we think there's a compelling case to do so. Okay. We then provide the template documentation, the template legal documentation, which then you can use with those members, and that effectively the fee you pay licenses that to you so that you can use it. And we then facilitate access to independent experts and mentors, which we know can do a good job, but which we're not necessarily providing directly. So this is the sorts of people like Steve, like Munir, there's some others as well, who can give you more guidance and, as appropriate, provide training or support or help you to sell your services overseas if that's something you want to do. But TTA is not expecting to do that itself. We are not expecting to be able to offer, for this very small price, the ability to provide long-term training in how you work internationally. We can provide general support, but if you want someone to sit down with you for a couple of days a month, that's not a TTA role. So we will facilitate access to people who can do that for the people that say that that's something they would need. And as I said, we've got experts out there that really do know what they're doing and have done this many times before, who've got a lot of expertise to support if you need that. Okay, so this is the structure of the IPP. I know there's a couple of questions that have been asked in the chat, which I'm going to go through now. So I'm going to address those, and then we'll pass over to Steve. So the first question we've got here is, if a TT member does not join the IPP, does that mean they will not have access to the international partner network? Correct. People that don't want to do international work is fine, right? There's lots and lots of work in the UK they can still do, okay? But for the people that want to focus their business on doing more work internationally, the international partner program is the way to do that. In the past, we did provide opportunities like the agent representation, where people would subscribe to be represented to agents. We'd produce a brochure, provide it to agents, but we feel like this is a more sustainable and a better value way of providing that kind of benefit to members. So all of our international development support will be routed through the international partner program in future, and it will serve as the bedrock. Because I don't think there's anything better value we can do for people other than give them the introductions and the template legal documentation, so that effectively it's a little bit like a pot noodle style, right? You just add boiling water, or just add a little bit of effort in your case, and you've got something ready to go. There will be other elements of support we can offer as well at various times, and we will follow up with people later on. And so there will be some other things that we can do to support people, but this will be the bedrock of our international business development support. Why only do the intros in the first few months? So the first few months are obviously a time when we're gradually building up the number of suppliers and the number of international partners. Once that number is built up, there'll be network effects. So it's obviously more value to be part of the program when there's 100 international partners than when there's only 3 or 5 or 10. However, in the first instance, we will want to help those partners and those suppliers get value out of the program, and we will put in more effort and more time to help to create those connections. Now, over time, it would become unmanageable for us to start providing email introductions for hundreds of different international partners and hundreds of members. And it would then become unrealistic for us to allocate quite a lot of resource to being able to manage those email introductions and do that fairly and consistently across all of those members and partners. So it's only something we expect is going to be sustainable for the first couple of months as we start to build up that network. So people who are joining in the first instance, it obviously is new, and we're going to do our best to make sure we support you to start working as soon as possible. But it's obviously going to be different in the early days from how it later on down the line when there are more members involved and when there are more partners involved. I've got 1 or 2 more questions here, and then I'm going to Jack Taylor as well. When the sorry, just trying to find where I got to.
So Joe Robbins is next. So when the form was initially shared, it said there would be an option to add more detail before information was shared with partners. When will we be able to share a more detailed view of our business offer? And then Julia asks a very similar question of how can we amend the descriptions and stuff that we sent you already?
In the first instance, if you're already subscribed to the program, that's a really good question. Email me directly, john@thetutorsassociation.org.uk. I will, if you're already on the program, if you're not on the program yet, then this does not apply to you. If you're already on the IPP, if you're already subscribed to that form, then you can send the information to me directly by email. The email is John, JOHN, @thetutorsassociation.org.uk. I'll put it in the chat. So if you, in the first instance, if you're on that program and you want to provide more detail, please email it to me. And as I'm going to be starting to send out the emails on Monday, I'll make sure we're using the up-to-date information. We're not necessarily just going to email every single IPP member to every single partner. We will try and pick and choose as appropriate, but we won't necessarily always get it right in that first instance. So if you do find that actually an introduction doesn't work, it's not a sign the program's not working. Just let us know, say, oh, I don't think this works because, and that will help us to guide that process. That will then help us to develop and evolve those processes as well.
So Mohammed was next. So I've just sent the link to register to become, to become an IPP supplier.
Yeah, we can get that link for you as well and send it into the chat. Sam, do you have it available?
Is that as an IPP partner? Is that the one that you're looking for?
No, as a supplier. So this is the launch for members.
I don't have that one, but is Julius around? Maybe Julius can grab that link.
Yeah, I'm here. Which link is it? Sorry.
For members to join, I've got it here.
Yeah, I've got it.
You've got it already, yeah?
Yep. Members to join.
Okay, so we're going to provide that for you there. Would you have to be a part of the program to gain access to your international trade missions? Yes. So the point is, we're now on trade missions. Normally, we've always advised people trade missions, do not expect to go there and be able to sign a contract while you're on a trade mission. It's almost never the case. And we've always been really, really clear with people, don't go on a trade mission, expect an immediate agreement or something to happen straight away. What this should hopefully do is mean that it is at least plausible that you could enter into negotiations while you're there with international partners that are already signed up, and that possibly, and it's still probably unlikely that it will happen that quickly, but either on the trade mission or within a couple of weeks afterwards, if you're doing the follow-up work, again, the onus being on you to do that follow-up work, that it should be realistic to enter into an agreement within a relatively short time frame, because the international partners we'll be introducing you to are on the program. What we don't want to do is to confuse international partners by saying, oh, we've brought 10 people to you that are members that have got these agreements and 5 people that haven't. and the international partners are not going to be able to understand what's going on here, who's on the program and who's not. And then it wouldn't be fair to people that are on the program that other people have come on the trade mission and they're going to try and do some work with the international partner, who the international partner thinks it's part of the IPP and then it's not. So to make this simplified, we're saying, look, there's not really, if you are interested in going on a trade mission, do the IPP first. Otherwise there's no real point. Otherwise, if you're going on a trade mission, then you're looking to develop those commercial relationships. It's not going to make sense if you're not part of the IPP. Are there particular subjects that are likely to be more in demand internationally? English language training is obviously very, very common internationally. International GCSEs, Cambridge and EdXL in particular, are both very common around the world. And there are a variety of other areas where there's specialist areas of expertise where there will be value. Steve, have you got a comment on that point? International.
I would just say that everywhere where you experience shortage of professionally trained tutors, staff in the UK, all those subjects, the science subjects, the STEM subjects, the math subjects, you know, it will be exactly the same internationally. More emphasis on English language, obviously.
Yeah.
But basically everywhere you would see in the UK will be the same pretty much internationally. In addition to sort of IGCSEs, IB, if any of you are teaching to IB standard, that will be probably quite a valuable asset.
Yeah, and also support in helping people to study abroad. International universities, going to school in the UK, for example, boarding school in the UK. There are a lot of people internationally that are interested in doing that as well. Moving on, we've got Juliet's asked, if you're an international partner, do you have to be based outside the UK? There's not a very hard and fast requirement, but we would only take people as international partners if you've got a credible presence outside the UK. So if you're based in the UK and you haven't got a credible presence outside the UK, then we would be introducing people to you who say, I want to work in XYZ market. If you don't have a strong presence in any other markets outside the UK, it's not going to work for you, because the people that will come to you will be dissatisfied that you can't provide them with any clients, and it won't work for you because you won't be able to provide them with anything. So you don't have to have a registered entity outside the UK. It's not a hard and fast requirement. All of the ones we've signed up so far have. But if you don't have it, but you have access to clients outside the UK, then you're still eligible to join as an international partner. Zach's asked, how many suppliers are you expecting to join? In the first instance, we expect that we'll have a cap of 20 corporates and 60 individuals, but that will be whilst we get the program up and running, just so that we don't have too many people to try and have to support at the same time. There are still some spaces left, but we've had I can't remember how many people have signed up so far, but there are still some spaces left for the initial couple of months. Would the incomes generated be subject to VAT? A question from Finnan, and the answer to that is a little bit more nuanced. VAT is subject to place of supply rules. We do have the general rule is there is a case to say that if you're delivering online tuition overseas, there is a case to say it could be exempt from VAT, and the place of supply can be ruled as where this customer is. However, this is nuanced, and we did do a joint procurement activity for a VAT pack, which includes the guidance from a VAT expert on how that works and what the case law is there. That is an extra cost because we obviously have to pay for it. So that's £400 plus VAT for the VAT pack if you need it. But the general principle is place of supply rules. If you're delivering outside the UK, very often it will be outside of the scope of UK VAT. If you need to get more specialist advice, or you need, then do that separately, depending on what services you have. We're going to take one more question from Jack, and then we're going to pass over to Steve. So Jack, please go ahead.
Hi there. Yeah, so for the corporate partners, partner providers, so do you pass the details when you make the introductions? Is it are you introducing the corporate company, or would you be introducing, I suppose, Jack from this company? And I only ask that because I'd like to kind of dedicate someone else within the company to deal with the international side. Is that, yeah, so would you be introducing just the company as a whole, and then the company and the partner will basically communicate however they decide? Because I know that you vetted me as such. So yeah, would I be able to pass it on to someone else within my company?
So if, yeah, your company is a TTA member, so you would just say, oh, the person I want to deal with this is Joe Blogs or whoever it is. So then we'll just introduce you via Joe Blogs. And when we do create the access lists for international partners, we will be providing the details of the person who you've designated as the contact. Okay. In every commercial agreement, the template commercial agreements for companies, obviously not for individuals. For individuals, it's just one person, that's fine. But for the template commercial agreement for companies, they always have a space for 2 responsible officers, i.e. 2 people within the company who are named with contact details who can act on behalf of that company with regard to that agreement.
Perfect. You know, that makes sense. Brilliant. Thanks, John. Okay.
So we're now going to pass over to Steve, who's going to give you a bit more of an overview of international trade generally, and some general advice for people who want to do this kind of work. See, Steve managed to get his slides up without any problem, which is great. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to pass over to Steve, and then I'm sure Steve will have a chance to answer some questions afterwards. So, Steve, over to you. Oh, Steve, you're muted, so we can't hear anything.
Great start. Good morning. Try again. I've got a few slides to run through, just some very quick overviews of my years of doing international trade, just to sort of give you a starting point. I've got to say, what John and TTA have put together here is a massive help. You know, almost every client I have has all the questions that John's highlighted, and the answers are just as complex as John's pointed out. So I love the fact that somebody's trying to put something together here to make this stepping in bit somewhat easier. So I've been doing education for 40 odd years. I've been doing export for 30 plus years, and for the last 6 or 7 years I've been helping predominantly edtech, but to be honest, any company that's supplying anything to education. I've worked with furniture suppliers, I've worked with software companies, I've worked with hardware, I've worked with software services, with physical services, all sorts of companies. The only rule is that they're supplying into the education space. That might be schools, that might be parents, it might be governments. So lots of experience, which I'm always happy to share. So let's make a start. Where do you start is probably the first thing to think about. Who are you looking for? You'll be amazed how many times I meet companies who don't really know who it is they're going to go to when they move into an overseas market. I'm guessing it could be parents, it could be schools, something that might be relatively new to you if you're used to being in UK is school groups owned by a set. So you'll all have heard of GEMS, Talim, various other organisations out there that own multiple schools that you might see as a major target. If you're only used to working in the UK, think of them like multi-academy trusts, a whole gang of schools together that you could perhaps get a deal with in one go. Obviously, what we've talked about so far is targeting at distributors, agents and resellers. But even if you're working through a distributor, an agent or a reseller, which is what the intention is with the TTA scheme, you still got to be thinking, who are they then targeting? Are they going for schools, school groups, parents, etc.? Because that will affect how you want to present what services you can offer. At some levels, could be governmental. If you're somewhere like Saudi Arabia, if you're looking to get in, the high likelihood is that you'll be talking to ministry officials about the services you can provide, or your distributor or agent might be talking to them on your behalf. Don't forget charities. Quite a lot of charities do a lot of work in education, so they could be a route in as well. Are you going to be proactive or reactive? I suspect everybody starts out being reactive, and quite a lot of times when I'm talking to clients, they say, well, we picked up a few sales internationally, we're not quite sure how we got them, they found us somewhere and contacted us, and now we do a little bit here and a little bit there. The whole point of the TTA scheme is to become more proactive, to go out and actively search for, and it can be very rewarding. My number one tip: research potential markets. I noticed a couple of times in the questions were things like, have you validated these international partners? I'm sure TTA have done some level of validation, but I would never rely on it. I'd want to do it myself. So research the market, and by that, it's not just the market, it's the potential partner you're going to work with. Somebody that is a really good partner for you will potentially be an absolutely awful partner for somebody else within TTA membership. So you really need to do that work yourself. Find out what they do, find out what their reputation is, find out what they specialize in, who are they targeting, do all of those things match with what you want to do. I'm going to come back to market research in a little while on a later slide. Biggest part of this is, are you ready for it? It can be a very time-consuming task, so think about, you know, the questions before you actually get started. This is the one I get all the time. Do I have to be really well established, and do I have to have a huge, great space in the UK market before I even think internationally? No, not at all. I think in today's world, limiting yourself to just the UK is very limiting. There's no reason why you can't be targeting international markets at exactly the same time as you are hopefully continuing to grow your business in the UK. Think about your pricing structure. You're gonna, you know, the TTA documents that I've seen are great, but they don't, of course, in any way, shape or form talk about costs, pricing, how you're going to intertrade with this reseller or agent. So think about it long and hard. Things like, what currency are you going to work in? Are you going to demand that they always pay you in pounds? Do you want it in euros? Do you want it in US dollars? Are you going to accept the local currency and do the translation yourself? Opening thing to do there is actually just give your bank a quick call or a contact on WhatsApp or whatever, and ask them if your bank account accepts other currencies. I was quite surprised years ago to discover my parochial little co-op account would quite happily take payment in euros and still takes payment in euros with no additional charges. If, however, I want dollars, good God, they want to rape me. So you know, I always ensure that I'm getting paid in pounds GB or in euros, and if it has to be dollars and it's a one-off, my tip would be PayPal. It is the quickest and easiest way to actually get payment in another currency translated. You're going to get stung on fees, but it's a quick way of doing it. So think a long way about what you want to charge and how you're going to receive that payment. Bear in mind, you know, what discounts you're going to offer, what commission rates you're going to offer to those resellers, because that obviously affects what you get in your pocket at the end. So think about that. What you charge in the UK and what you charge internationally should be two completely different things. They should not be the same amount for varying reasons. And internationally, they may be more, and in some international markets, they may be less. That's part of doing your market research. Think about those payment methods. I already mentioned PayPal, but by far the best one is to get your payment in advance. And I know the TTA documents go a long way towards talking about who and how you'll get paid. Not the amounts, but it does lay out a really good method for payments that should be agreeable to both sides. Bank transfer is always the preferred route. Think about conformity in any of the markets you're going into, and that's things like data transfer. If you're going to be taking personal information of students or children of parents, or even parent information, bear in mind that certain countries will be very unhappy if you transport that outside of their borders. Again, working with that local agent partner on the ground, that should be something that they can resolve quickly. They might keep all that information. They will certainly know whether there's an issue or not, but just make sure that you're staying the right side of that one. Certification requirements in certain countries, you might find that they demand a certain level of certification from you or from your company. You might have to prove your company exists. You might have to prove you're educated to a certain level, have got a certain qualification. So be aware of all of those things when you're talking with those local agents and resellers. What do they tell you that you need to actually work with them? I'm assuming everybody's got a website. I would hope you have. Think about, is the website ready? Pricing visibility is the first and most obvious one. If you've got a price up there of I charge X pounds per hour to deliver my training, you probably will want to remove that fairly quickly, because the last thing you want is somebody in, I don't know, Abu Dhabi coming on your website, seeing your UK price, and then complaining to you and your reseller that they're offering it at a different price. And so the easiest thing to do for all of that is something called geofencing. On your website, on the way in, you get the IP address of the guy that's looking at your site. If it's a UK IP address, you show him the price, and if it's not, you don't show him the price. You perhaps send him off back to an international page, or maybe even redirect him back to your distributor or agent in that country. All of that's doable fairly easily and very cheaply on a website. Think about the terminology you're using. You know, if you're going to be doing IGCSEs and the like, then obviously talking about GCSE on your website is fine. But if you happen to mention things like Ofsted inspections, years rather than grades, in certain areas talking about head teachers rather than principals, there's all sorts of terminology that we throw into our website without thinking, and some of it can be quite distracting and not helpful when you're thinking internationally. If you're planning to start offering IB style courses, then there's a whole new set of terminology you're going to have to learn to be relevant to IB. Think about your contact info. Do you want people to be able to find you and contact you directly, or do you want them to always go through the distributor or agent? Probably the latter, in which case what you might want to do is either have a list of the people you work with in different countries, or again, using that geolocation, just automatically give them the contact info for whatever country they're in. And do you want to list your local representation? There's good and bad in that. The good is, you know, you're advertising and showing all the different places you work, and that clients can potentially contact directly the person on their doorstep. Bad side is everybody else can see who you're working with, and you might not want all of your fellow companies to be able to see everybody that you're working with in every country. Okay, let's quick through a bit of market research. Begin with desk research. Google is your friend. CIA World Factbook, despite being by the CIA, is a mountain of really good information. Use that as well. You can find out an awful lot about the country. You then want to find out about that partner, so you want to do a bit of searching around there. In time, one of the things you'll probably be able to do is reach out to other TTA members and say, hey, are you working with this partner? How are you finding that relationship? You know, does it work for you? What do you think my chances are? So you can start to build that knowledge base. Scoping visits. So this way you get on a plane and go out there and actually meet them and talk to them, and hopefully they get to show you what they do and where they work, and perhaps even some of the clients that they work with. Trade missions, we've already mentioned. TTA doing more and more trade missions. I spent 20 odd years doing trade mission after trade mission. Really good way to get into a country, to meet people, and to open doors that you just wouldn't get opened if you were on your own. But as part of that trade mission, you can get to meet all sorts of interesting people. Conferences is another one. Think about all the conferences. There's no shortage of education conferences around the world. If you want advice on which ones might be appropriate, by all means, give me a shout. Happy to have a talk about that. There are millions of them. Exhibitions, similar. Yeah, exhibitions, conferences all sort of fall under that same bracket. Okay, just quickly, your checklist, if you like, for sort of distributors and agents. First of all, let's get that definition. My definition is, and seems to be reasonably universal, a distributor would buy from you and sell on to their customers. So they're going to buy your services for a fixed price, and then they are going to charge the customer for that work, and then they will pay you your agreed amount. An agent or reseller, the two seem to be sort of synonymous, will forward that order or the contact information to you directly. And at that point, you will charge that client and you will receive the payment. And then you pay that commission to the agent after you've been paid, not before. All of that is covered very cleverly in the TTA contract. I was really impressed reading that, because that's a complicated set of stuff to do. Yeah, and John, absolutely full marks. It goes in both directions. You can set the contract up to work either way. And God, this can save you a lot of negotiation. Final thing to say is they can be both. There are occasions when they might be working as an agent and then come to you and say, we've got a really big deal. It's something very different. We need to work as a distributor. We want to just buy your services on block, you know, and we'll do all of that. And there's no reason why you can't use them as both. You might have to revisit the TTA contract a little bit and check the wording to make sure that you can go in both directions. But yeah, it's possible to do both. Okay, again, quickly, how to evaluate. First of all, where are they? You'd be amazed at how many people will tell you that they're really big in, I don't know, Hong Kong, and when you ask them where they are, they're in the Philippines. And that always raises a whole set of questions about how do you manage to be really big in a country you don't reside in. So, you know, be careful on location. Look for their experience, their expertise, how long have they been around. TTA will have done some level of vetting on them coming in, but again, it's down to you to go and find out a lot more. Think about their size. Are they another one-man business? Are they a multinational? You know, how well will that work for you? Bearing in mind, if they are hugely bigger than you, then they will tend to throw their weight around, and you're going to have to be a little careful of that. That's where a good contract comes in again. Their history, how long have they been around? What sort of reputation have they got? What sort of influence and connections do they have? How well do they know that market? How well respected are they in it? Again, back to your desk research. Their physical location within country. You know, I know we're probably talking about delivering an awful lot of this online, but in certain countries, you know, I was on my first trip to Australia, stood in Sydney, and the guy said, would you buy something from somewhere in the middle of Eastern Europe for next day delivery? And I said, no. And he said, so why on earth would you expect me to buy something from Perth to be delivered in Sydney? Because it's the same distance. You know, so think about physically where they are. Are they in the capital cities? Have they got regional branches, etc.? Their communication level, how good are they at talking to you? If you're struggling from day one to get a good conversation with them, it's not going to get better. So bear that in mind. You know, how good are they at actually making that relationship? This is one of the major reasons you're looking for somebody on the ground. They understand the culture, the religion, the ethnicity, the regional difference. If they don't understand that, then they are not going to be successful in that market with your product. So really check hard on that one. Bear in mind, unfortunately, in certain climates, your ethnicity is going to have a large factor on how well you are received by the general population. I hate that fact, but it exists. So think about that. Quick example, if you're in Malaysia and you're dealing with an Indian heritage company, you will struggle to get large deals because they will only deal with Bumiputras, ethnic Malaysians. It's awful, but it happens. So think about that. Take references. You know, if you're not sure about them, or even if you are sure about them, it doesn't harm to say, you know, give us a couple of other companies that you work with, preferably UK companies. But you know, who else, you know, can I go to that will vouch for you? It all comes down to that one word at the end. You know, when you begin that negotiation, when you begin that conversation with that partner, how well do you feel about it? The best indicator I have, and I think it's true with everybody, is go with your gut. If you're 5 minutes into that conversation and it don't quite feel right, the likelihood is it's not going to go in the right direction. So think about, how do you feel about this relationship? Is it going to work for you? I left this page up just to show how painful contracts can be. This is what TTA have just taken away from you. You don't have to worry about all of that contracty stuff. And believe me, I could do another 5 pages on contracts and all the things that should be in them and shouldn't be in them and how you negotiate them and all that sort of stuff. I love the fact that this system will just take almost all of that away for you. Most important part, managing that relationship. Don't just sign it up and wait for the money to roll in. It doesn't work that way. Communication, stay in touch with them. Now that does not mean bug them every week, because they'll just stop answering you if you're pestering them too often. But stay in communication. Find an excuse to tell them something wonderful that's happening. Just something to keep the lines open. Because if you stay in their mind, that's how they're going to promote you and get you the work. Have some conversation right at the beginning about how much work do you think's involved. It's great. You can be a year down the line, you sit down to discuss how it's gone, and they're really excited because they brought you 5 clients. The problem is you were expecting 50. So you've gone into that conversation a year down the line with a very different view of how successful this relationship's been. At the start, set some ideas. How many people do you think I'd be working with? How many contracts do you think I might get in the first year? Be realistic about them, but really what you're doing is put a stake in the ground so that the pair of you know more or less what's expected. Think about visits, or if not visits, at least regular communications. The odd sort of Zoom or team call or something like that will help no end. If you are visiting, think about timing it to when there are exhibitions or events, conferences that they're doing that you can go and support them at. If you are going out there, offer to go and meet customers, potential clients, that sort of thing. That particularly in Asia is always very well received. Also, while you're out there, think about possibly delivering a presentation, a workshop, or whatever on goods and services that might be appropriate. Support them. If there is an issue, get in there straight away and help them and help to clarify and resolve whatever it is. Marketing materials, they're going to be selling you and your services, so make sure that you've got an appropriate pieces of information about your background, your history, and why you're the best person for that role. Customer support, obviously, if they have a customer who's got a problem, you need to be on top of that. And build lasting relationships. That's what it's really about. In my years, I built relationships with people who I haven't done business with now for 10 or 15 years, but I still talk to regularly because they're friends, and when I get on an airplane now, most countries I land in, there's somebody there that I know who I can go and have a beer with and catch up with. It is about building those relationships. That is what will make you profitable in the end. A quick recommendation. If you're starting to work internationally, I would definitely have a look at this book. It's a brilliant book about customs. It's available on Amazon. It's also available in other places for quite a bit less. So do a bit of searching around. There's even an ebook version of it and an audiobook version of it. It's a great book that talks about doing business in other countries. Next steps for you guys. Well, obviously join the partnership program to begin with. So speak to TTA about that. Book a meeting with me. Always happy to have a chat. No strings attached. You can visit my website. It's got a calendar and diary up there. You can book yourself in. Always happy to have a conversation with you if you've got questions beyond today. And then go away and either make or review your exporting plan. Really put a bit of time into it. Think about what it is you want and the routes you're going to take. Again, if you want some help with that, that's where you might want to give me a call. And that's me done. A real whistle-stop tour. I hope that helped.
Thank you so much, Steve. And just for those of you who are interested, so we will be facilitating introductions for sessions with people like Steve. and Munir. I know Munir's on this call as well, and has also been supporting people with that, TTA members with international work. So we will be facilitating sessions with them separately as well in the near future. I've got a few other quick points I'm just going to pick up on what Steve said. We've found as TTA that Wise, it used to be called TransferWise, but they've renamed it, is actually quite a good bank. It does accept quite a wide range of different currencies. Not every single currency in the world. I don't think there's any bank that accepts every currency in the world, but it does help. Bear in mind, obviously, payments in and out of countries, TTA cannot help you with that. Okay, it's not our job to try and get your payment for you. We do quite a lot as a professional body already, as it is, as I'm sure Steve will probably will tell you. But we can't make sure that the payment gets transferred. We can't fix issues in the banking system. We can't find people's IBAN codes or any of this stuff. You're going to need to do some of those things yourself. Steve raises a good point on the contracts. I really appreciate Steve's insight in looking over the contracts for me, and he did provide me some interesting points to raise. But I think fundamentally what we've got is something very flexible. I wanted to just make sure that you understood clearly how we've designed this to try and make it as easy as possible for you. Okay. If there's any questions, obviously I'm happy to take any questions now. I appreciate that people may have to leave promptly because they've got other things to be doing, but I'm going to stay for a couple more minutes. Maybe Steve and Munir as well. I don't know if they can stay for a moment or two. If you've got any questions, please let me know.
Yeah, I'll stay. No issues.
Yeah. Okay. Zach's got a question. Also, if the partner is acting as an intermediary, then presume that they are free to charge clients in their country whatever they want, and the percentage thing is irrelevant. Yes, and there's an additional provision section at the very end where if you're going to state the fee that you're charging, and normally they're going to want to charge that fee because they don't want to be necessarily charging something where they think that the client might find out who you are, go to you direct and get a different fee. Now, obviously, Steve's mentioned a lot of the things you need to consider about that. There will often be different prices in different markets for various reasons. But if you want to change that, then again, there's an additional provision section where you can add in that level of detail. Again, if you need extra support of that, talk to someone who knows what they're doing. People like Steve and Munir have done these kinds of things before. They will be able to help you. TTA is not providing sort of a hand-holding service to design how your particular products and services are going to be structured, but there will be people that can help you on that. Typical partners, who are they? So partners will include commercial entities that simply want to sell education services and products. Okay. They may have their own network of clients. They may already be selling other products in their own market. They may be a publisher, or they may have their own sales channels. They may also be just a tuition company, but they want to access different range of reputable tuition services to add to their portfolio. They're more likely, for example, in that circumstance, to want to sell it under their own name, under their own tuition company name. There is a schools group that we've been talking to that I think have got about 86 schools around the world, and they are very interested in this. We will be approaching more schools groups. There will be entities that are associated with universities. One or two of them that we're talking to are like non-profit entities, but they obviously want to earn money as a part of their operations. A range of different partners. Okay, and we've got Mohammed. You've got a question about Saudi. I mean, I'm happy to take a question about Saudi now specifically. We have got a couple of partners in Saudi. Do you want to come off mute and tell us what your question is, or do you want to type it?
Yeah, the question is purely on visas, right? So is everybody responsible for getting their own visa, or is it something that has to be done through the TTA? Yes,
you have to get your own visa. I don't even think we're allowed to try and get a visa for you, because there's things where we need to tick the box to say, I declare that all of this stuff is true. We can't take that legal liability of.
Mohammed, it takes about 3 seconds to do it. If you want to drop me a line afterwards, I'll help you. It's really, really, really easy.
The Saudi visa application process is not hard.
I'll give you my number.
Yeah.
Okay, if you can, please, Munir, thank you.
The Saudi visa application process is not that hard or complicated. It's quite straightforward. You tick a few boxes, you pay a very small fee, and it's done. The visa application process for China, for example, is much more involved. You've got to declare if you've ever had weapons training and all the rest of it, which I had to say that I have, obviously. So they got quite interesting. But yeah, for Saudi Arabia, it's quite straightforward.
Yeah, it has changed significantly. When I was traveling to Saudi, oh my God, it was 3 days stood outside the Saudi embassy waiting to be let in to file your form by hand. And then
please don't say that. It gives me hives even thinking about it back in the good old days. I was there with you as well.
Killer. Yeah, it's got magnificently easier now. I know somebody who literally filled in the form and an hour later was on the plane. You know, it is a very easy task now.
Yeah, I would agree. Mohammed, please don't worry. I've had a visa accepted by I pressed send, and the next email that arrived was the visa. It really is that easy.
Yeah, I think there was even a case, don't do this, I do not want you to do this. There was even a case of someone who did it when they were in airport before they were walking up to the passport desk.
Yeah, I've been that person. I've done that one. Got refused, went and sat in the waiting room.
Sat in the waiting room.
Filled it in, yeah.
Obviously, that's a high-risk approach. We do not endorse that. Do not try and come to Saudi Arabia and get your visa as the plane has landed. But that has happened before. That's possible. In some countries, that is definitely not possible. So don't do that anywhere else. Okay, there was another question from Zach. How are we vetting partners? The level of vetting we can do for partners has a limit. So we are vetting partners. We are checking that they, to an extent, that they are who they say they are. But you must do your own due diligence. You must check the partners yourself. If we find good reason to remove them from the program, then obviously we'll do that, and then all of the commercial agreements with them will be terminated automatically, because there is a kill switch in the commercial agreement that if their MOU with TTA is terminated, which we would only normally do for a very good reason, all of their commercial agreements die with them. Okay, so they would immediately, that your agreement would be ended automatically. So we would obviously tell you if that was the case, if any international partner is being removed, and the international partner being removed for us would be if there was some serious issue where we felt that the other members were put at risk if they continue to operate with them. Not something we're going to do lightly. We don't anticipate there being a frequent need to ever do that. I'm just making it really clear to you how these are designed and how they work. It is a TTA managed program, and it means that the international partner has to sign up to the TTA's oversight, and TTA having the right to mediate and arbitrate, which is a protection for both parties, because it means that if you ever find yourself in a dispute with some very big organization based far over abroad, they can't suddenly go to their own local courts, who might be their friends in some countries, get some massive judgment against you for millions of pounds because they think you're a terrible guy, and then have problems. They have to go through TTA administered arbitration if there's a dispute, and we've got the right to reject that or whatever. But that means you've got a lot more protection under this than you would do just going out into the world with your own set of contracts, which obviously you can still do. There's no problem doing that. I haven't got any concern, but I can't help you in that situation. With this program, we've really tried to make sure that you're not going to be on the hook for anything that outrageous because you've signed a contract with someone you've not understood how it's going to work. Okay, I appreciate we've run over a lot. I appreciate everyone's patience. I know that people need to go. Steve, you've got something else to say, and then I think we'll wrap up very shortly.
Sorry, I was just going to say, quite a while back in chat, Juliet asked about what if the partner wants to pay a lot less than you want to deliver the service for. I would say, to a great extent, stick to your guns. You can absolutely trade on the fact that you're British and that you're offering the best education system in the world. Certainly my experience of a language school in Vietnam, they had at least 3 different pricing structures depending on where the tutor came from. And the highest paid tutoring was for native English language speaking teachers. And the British ones got paid or got charged even more than the Australian ones. So even the accent within English language was deemed as a valuable pricing. So if they're saying, no, we don't charge that much, you turn around and say, well, then I'm sorry, but if you want this quality, this is the price you have to pay.
Yeah, and just also a final note, all of the material we provide you with is provided in confidence or licensed to you. You're not allowed to take it and go off and do anything else with it other than what's in the program. This is all included in the sign-up form, but I just thought it's worth to reiterate it because I know sometimes people, we all get presented with loads of tick boxes to tick, terms and conditions, everything else. You're not allowed to just take all of our contracts and run away. First of all, they won't work outside of the TTA program anyway, because they'll have all these references to TTA, the memorandum of understanding. So if you ever wanted to enforce it, you're going to realize the court's going to go, well, you're not part of this, so how it's going to work. But just to clarify, all this stuff we've produced dedicated for the members that are on this program and structure that service for you. You're not allowed to start taking all these lists of people and going off and, I don't know, selling them to your mate or whatever else. That is strictly forbidden. For obvious reasons, right? The international partners are expecting to be introduced to TTA members who have signed up to the program, not to TTA members' uncle's mate who sells widgets or whatever it is that it might do. So just please be aware of that. It is important that if you are accessing the program, it is for your benefit. Please don't try and break the rules and take contact details and send them somewhere else, or take contracts and hack them apart yourself. That is not allowed. Okay, we're going to end there then. Okay, thank you very much everyone for joining. Real thank you for Steve and also for Munir for adding their expertise in. We will be organizing further sessions and training, and we'll be circulating that to you. I know we've not set dates yet for that sort of thing. If there are people that have got additional, if you want additional support, then we'll be able to connect you with the ability to do that. As I said in the chat, on Monday, we'll be doing the first introductions and giving people access to the shared drive. This means you'll get access to the template contract for either the individual or the commercial one, depending whether you're an individual or tutor or company, and also the first introductions to international partners. As time goes on, we're hopefully going to be introducing you to more and more international partners. They will all have joined for different reasons. We'll provide some introduction, but it's up to you to then explore that in more detail. And do feel free to come back and give us feedback on how it's going. I can't promise we'll get back to you immediately, especially if 10 of you come back with feedback at the same time. We'll have to take some time to go through it. And then we'll evolve the program and how it works based on that feedback and response. But effectively, what we're hoping that you'll do is that we'll start getting some of you working internationally fairly soon, and wish you very good luck. So thanks so much, Steve. Thanks, Munir. Thanks for everyone, TTA team who's joined, and thanks for all of you who've been joining this webinar today on the International Partner Program.